Okay, great. Yeah. Well, just for a quick intro here, this is called Cold Email Avengers. This is where we assemble the world's foremost cold email experts to show you how you can make more money. Today we have Ken, founder of AutoUp.io. And for everybody listening, for the audience, if you've got a question about cold email and how to generate more revenue with outreach, Ken will know the answer. So just some background, Ken has helped his clients close 68 deals in 6 weeks, for example, helped them book meetings with multi-billion-dollar brands, and even replace entire sales teams with just a handful of automated cold email campaigns. So we're doing like a Q&A today, like Ken is doing the Q&A. And apart from the Q&A, Ken will also show you some of his most recent findings, such as fun approach with trashing celebrities in cold email that's been an absolute winner, and also new innovation when scraping job listings. So I'm really curious to hear what that is about. I don't know yet, so that's going to be cool. And yeah, for everybody listening, please post your questions in the comments below. We'll limit this Facebook Live to around 1 hour, so questions will just be answered on a first come, first serve basis. Just drop them in the comments, and then Ken will see them, and then Ken, you can answer them. But awesome. Let me check. Meaning we're doing an announcement as well to all the users, and we can pretty much get started. And that's maybe you can start already of what you told me about, and as the comments coming, feel free to just answer those questions.
Yeah, totally. And actually, I don't know if maybe I need to get into a different window. I'm not seeing the comments, but I'll figure that out in a minute. But yeah, so there was a fun idea that you talk about pattern interruptions and like sort of making fun of celebrities is a good way to get replies, right? And it's a way to like marry personalization as well. So for example, I was chatting with some other guys who do what we do and just really smart. So one example is Felipe Feur, if you know him. He's business partners with Michael Gardner. Great guy, smart guy. And we sometimes just talk offline to just talk shop and, chat about different ideas. But one approach that we saw that's been running around is some guys will, they'll call out, say, restaurants in your area, right, as a pattern interruption, and you can programmatically do that. It's kind of a cool way. But, one thing that we tried doing with the client was they were prospecting into Southern California, right? So they had to approach San Diego, but really LA County, and the Lakers always been the biggest thing there. And client's big hoops fan, me too. And we both despise LeBron James, just can't stand the guy. And so we would, and LeBron's great, that's all fair. But just as a fun, light way to sort of throw in some personalization and some levity to it, what we would do is we'd say, hi, first name, here's the offer, we can do X, Y, Z. And then we'd say, in parentheses, even if you happen to be a LeBron fan, and some version of that, or even if you're a Lakers fan. And so by just needling the people and taking kind of a cool, confident approach to it, not really like, there's another way I think where people, they can kind of kiss up to prospects, and that's not a good way. You can surrender your frame pretty quickly that way. I think just taking that detached, light way, that got an insane amount of replies. You got people coming in saying, I'm a Kobe fan, I'm whatever, but the guard was dropped. And then if you have people who can reply well, right, and manage replies well, you can often turn those into calls and, get things going. But we tried it too. We tried it like in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, with like, the Dallas Cowboys, big thing there. We'd make fun of Cowboys fans, and up and down the line this goes. You can do it in different geographies, but I think that's the big thing, is being original. I don't know that anyone's quite doing that, but if you can find a way that's just light enough, probably don't want to veer into, say, politics or something like that, but people can take some ribbing about their sports teams. And that again, encapsulates a little bit of personalization that's important. So just wanted to share that, and I'm sure after a month or two, everyone will have done that, but it works. It works great. I mean, we had reply rates, north of 25% just from that one, going after LeBron, which was satisfying too. So.
Okay, awesome. And you put that in the PS, or what do you put that like the deadline?
Just even in the body copy. So we'd say, we do offer, and then in parentheses, even if you happen to be a LeBron fan,
Okay.
or you can put a different riff and syntax that say, except for Lakers fans, and just make it just different. And even then, like, go deeper with this stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's been a great pattern interruption for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, people can probably do this. I mean, in the US, there's so many sports teams. In Europe, probably with soccer teams or something like that. Um, they can apply that right away.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But I think the big takeaway though is you look on, say, Money Twitter, and you have a handful of people doing kind of the same stuff, or even in this group, or just there's these communities within cold email are kind of small, and people who are really smart and who do really well will call out a certain strategy, and then everyone tends to adopt it very quickly. And so I think the real important takeaway here is just to strive really to be original. And that goes even with just offers itself. If you're running cold email lead gen, the amount of people I've talked to on discovery calls, and I mean founders or, head of VD and growth and guys like that, they'll tell me, you wait, you didn't guarantee me a certain amount of meetings. That's actually why I want to talk to you, because everyone guarantees it. Everyone's read Hormozy. Everyone's cranking out Hormozy style offers. And so by not offering a guarantee, that's the pattern interruption I'm finding as well. So I think that just looking to position something that's a good, strong offer and be as original as you can, I think that's how you can really win. And it can go on the micro level with, the geography, the bigger picture with the offer itself. But I think looking for those edges everywhere you can do it is important for sure.
Okay, really interesting. And you also mentioned something else, like losing the frame or like kissing up to clients. Can you talk a little bit more about that, like how that can happen if people have a certain approach?
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because it's something that as an entrepreneur forever I've always not liked, right? I don't want someone to just to sort of do that. I want them to just pitch me, because if they can make my life easier, if they can make me money or save me money or lead with value, I want to hear it, and I will hear it. If they want to beat around the bush and just not get to the point, I don't really have much time for that. And we ran user tests too, so we found there was a pretty small but really smart group that I will send to. And so we've got some serial entrepreneurs, we've got some Ivy League people, we've got just people who are in interesting spaces that get pitched to all the time. So we'll try different approaches, send it to them, and say, "What's your feedback?" And across the board, a couple of them liked, say, the restaurant idea, but most of them just like, "What is this? Like, are you Big Brother?" And the other thing too is like the one commonality, if you really want to personalize, if you didn't go to high school with that person, it's really hard to do well, right? I mean, what sort of common threads are you looking for outside of something that could really be that intimate? There are things out there that work, don't get me wrong, but I think that just being confident and leading with value is always going to be, the better way to do this stuff, in my opinion.
Okay, great. Awesome. We have already a bunch of questions that have come in. I'm not sure, can you see the questions or the comments on that Facebook post?
So
Or
sorry, I mean, maybe need to get to the post itself. Give me a second.
let me
I'm
see if
just in
I can find you
Riverside.
the link as well.
Yeah. So, okay. What are favorite GPT prompts? So I would say that I don't use GPT a lot. I want to. I use it in like limited use cases, but really it's just to sort of hone in on list building. So we can segment out like finding based on certain inputs. So for example, a company's LinkedIn page, domain, and so forth. Like tell me if the company's B2B or B2C. I like that one because it can sort of narrow out people who wouldn't be a good fit for what we want to do. And alternatively, like I have a client that they target B2C companies. So, the inverse is true. We use it there. So I think that that's important. I also think it can help us talk about who we want to sell to. So give me a few examples of people that a company can sell to. Keep the input short. We can talk about that. But even then, I just am not in love totally with how it spits out the output. So sometimes we might say, keep it to, give us 3 job titles, for example, that say that instantly might sell to, or people, would be users of. And then we'll do something, just grammatically, it's not flowing in a way that I love. So I don't know. We're at this point, it's not something we're always tinkering. We play with GPT every day, but I've actually found that just by pitching an offer itself, and sort of avoiding it, unless we're like tightening a list and things like that. That's kind of been our approach, more than not. We ran some tests on it, and it just wasn't working as well, to be honest. Um,
Okay.
so, okay, another question, Roshan. What's delivery monitoring process look like? We're just going to use the Instantly dashboard and the analytics that are baked into the cake there. That's kind of the main thing. We do track opens for the most part. We have some clients, we tell them to think through, right, at a high level. There's a school of thought that their open rate tracking is not great for deliverability. We've not seen that to be a huge difference, candidly, but we give our clients the option. And so if we see shifts, though, that move, like if open rates are moving in a measurable way, that's one thing we look at. Reply rates, too. Of course, that matters as well. And ultimately, just points on the board, how many calls and wins are there. But it's not much automation there. I know there are guys that have done some pretty slick stuff with an Airtable and other things where you can have these dashboards. But we like to have our client calls once a week. And so by having once a week touches where we can just share what's existing within Instantly, that's been a pretty solid way for us to operate. Rayo asks, is quick question still the best subject line? Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. It's up there. We'll still use it. I personally like first name thoughts and first name question. I do think that quick question, I think some people, I've heard stories that they will use that as a filter to skip the inbox or delete emails altogether. I still think it's performing well, so there's no question. But I just, again, running user tests on this, across the board, people loved first name thoughts. And that's the one that we'll go to when in doubt. Okay, another question about 60 open rates, but no reply. Services is 3D rendered animation. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know why there are no replies. Oftentimes it's the offer, it could be the copy, it could be the targeting, right? There's a lot of nuance to stuff. So without knowing kind of all the steps that you're taking, it's tough to know, but 68% open rates, you can feel reasonably confident that your deliverability is there and people are seeing what's going on. Let's see here. Kishan asks about how much spin tax should I use my email campaign? I would say as much as possible, as much as you can. And it's funny because I actually threw out a little giveaway on Twitter today that sort of points to what you can do with spin tax. I'm going to share the document with you. So the idea would be on Twitter, you can have the, you just retweet this and then it comes auto DM, but I'm going to give it just to the group here. I think you guys will like it because what's cool about this
If
doc.
you want, you can put it in the comments. I'll post the Twitter.
Okay. Yeah.
That it put, I put it in the comments and then people can check it out. I
Yeah.
retweeted it and liked it. I checked out the document. Good stuff, guys. You have to check it out.
No, appreciate it for sure. Here, give me 1 second here. But yeah, this is going to work great because what's cool about it is it works for every use case, every client, does not, affect the body copy at all. So you guys can all use it. And it's actually, I've got the conventions lined up to where it works specifically for Instantly. So there's the Twitter, and here's the giveaway itself coming up, or here's the Google Doc. So you guys take that. That's a winner too. And actually threw in a little Easter egg where
there's a comment there. Give this to me before I call the cops, please.
yeah.
You saw
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, Ollie. Yeah, Oliver. That's a good one. So he got it. We didn't need that, but yeah, it's fun because it can work in every single use case. And then there's a little extra gift, which is a GPT prompt from Nils, from you, about how to use spin tax. And that's actually, sorry, I should have mentioned that too. We use that pretty regularly as well. It's a great way to use GPT. Just the first layer, create spin tax. Then I think you've got to have some, a human looking at it to shape it. But good stuff though, for sure, guys.
Okay, great. I'm posting that in the comments now.
Cool. Share copywriting to get better results. So yeah, that's a tough one. Again, depends on your offer. I will say a couple rules of thumb that are hopefully helpful. Shorter tends to work better than longer. People don't want to see novellas and missives and just really long things, right? I think you have to lead with value. Typically, it's better if you're writing empathetically, talking about the prospect and not so much about you and being self-referential. But it's funny, the more that I get into the weeds and the more that I do this stuff, the more I'm encouraged to just frankly to break all the rules and ignore all of it, because sometimes you can do that. And so here's an example. We have a client that really like a talented guy. He's a former executive at LinkedIn, right? Led a team of 1,000 people at LinkedIn and does in-person executive culture building coaching sessions, right? This guy's worked with a good fortune, good chunk of the Fortune 100. He's a total stud. Really impressive guy. And so we started sending outreach, this was months ago, and we were doing okay, but we weren't doing great. And we started talking more and more about, the approach. And, what we actually did was we went longer. We wrote 297 word first email. It was insane. It had no business doing as well as it did, but we knew the audience really well. That audience cared deeply about, conscious capitalism and servant leadership. And it was just like a very, almost empathetic group. But by lengthening the copy and speaking to them and calling out things in their LinkedIn profile, things like that, it was absurd. We actually got so many leads that they paused us and like had to stop. So sometimes it's okay to bend the rules and break it. Another example would be we'd like to, again, usually talk about the prospect, solve their pain, things like that. But kind of as an earlier example, talking about these Hermosi style offers, we go heavy, like when we're running our own outbound, heavy on the social proof. We'll say, hey, we've done this for companies that have raised over $1 billion. They've been in, the New York Times, the Washington Post, everywhere from a press perspective. So it's like, it's about us, which I don't love to do, but it stands out. It's different and it works. And so don't be afraid to break the rules is one thing I would say too, especially if you know your audience and know it well.
Yeah, you had a great Twitter thread about that the other day, like breaking the rules. Like some people say, hey, I also said this in the past, like never use signature, but then you tested it with some of your own campaigns and you say, hey, like signature is outperforming. So it's good to have like some foundational knowledge of like do's and don'ts, but once you've mastered these basics, like feel free to like break the rules. Don't take it as gospel. Try your own spin on it, and that's how you can find this winner. Like what you said also with the humor, something people should definitely keep in mind.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think though that like you guys, no one's done as good a job as Instantly is just putting together like what are the fundamentals because there's so much stuff out there, so much noise. But I think keeping your sends under 30 a day and writing generally a certain way, stick to those fundamentals. It's a really good place to start for sure. Let's see here. What we got another one. What's the sweet spot employee size for companies to target with cold email? Oftentimes it's, I think difficult to target like the super enterprise companies, 10,000 plus, because if they're that big, ostensibly and in theory, they've got kind of everything figured out. They've got a team for everything, right? So I think smaller, but maybe not too small to where, they don't have budget or they don't have processes and they're not going to be a good partner from that perspective. So 11 to 50 is a great starting point. And again, this all depends on your offer too and what you're selling. Sometimes you have to start only small, or sometimes it is only the enterprise level that needs to be what you want. But if it's for like lead generation itself, I think, we'll set different specs. So it's like at least company size of 10, and then looking at funding, right, as a way of some degree of a signal too. Although that's getting played out pretty substantially, I think. Anybody that's raised any amount of cash, their inboxes are getting completely murdered, I think, right now. And so that's tough. That's a tough one as well. But at least they've got budget. How do I determine when to scale the campaign volume and by how much? Tough one. You just know when you know. I think that 1,000, like 1,000 contacts tends to be a pretty good baseline, though. If you've sent to 1,000, that's a decent sample size. Some people might say 100, which is, I think, just far too little. But if you should typically see something, be able to extract something if your list building is on point with 1,000, and then from there, just run up the score, keep pushing. But that's usually the rule of thumb. But sometimes you can have like if you're in say cybersecurity where every SQL is incredibly valuable and they're really tough to nail those calls. Maybe 1,000 isn't it, right? If the TAM is just particularly tricky, it might be 2,500. So again, nuance to that as well. The industry matters and the targeting matters, but that's the other thing I would offer.
All right. So a question by Mini. He's asking, it's been over a month since we started Instantly to generate leads in real estate, but we haven't received any significant response. We have a list of homeowners and offer them our real estate services. what is the best approach for generating leads in real estate through cold emails? Maybe it's a little bit it's very specific, but maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a tough one because well, the macro economics are not great for real estate. The housing market's virtually at a standstill, right? So trying to reinvent the wheel is potentially really difficult, but it just depends what you want to do. So I'll give one example. It's, I think, the great case study that you mentioned at the top, Nils, where we did this for a company that raised over almost $900 million, company called Knock. And so they're really interesting, the prop tech company where what they do is they allow you to buy before you sell, and they'll give you a 0% bridge loan. So it's a really innovative product. It's an awesome offer. And so the approach there was to find listings that were on the market, scraping the MLSs of respective markets and finding listings that maybe had been sitting for 21 days or whatever the spec was. We could then get the contact information for the real estate agent and then email the agents and say, hey, saw your listing at address. That was a merge field. Just wanted to tell you about Knock because we can kind of get you unstuck, so to speak. And so this was like high intent, super event driven. And then, you dangle the fact that from the agent perspective, those commissions, they could win two sides of them. So money for them, they could get their clients going. But that's just an ingenious product that worked really well for the use case. Unless your solution or your services are something akin to that, it can be tough because the real estate market is just in a weird place, right? Where if you look right now, the cost of renting is so much below what it is to own, and inventory is just so low. So it's just, that's the other thing. Macroeconomics in a lot of different spaces are kind of, throwing people for wrenches for sure.
Yeah. Okay. There's another question. Are there some words that Gmail tracks as cold email and might flag as spam?
Well, I think you've got the general like spam words that are out there, and we know what those are, like free and things that talk about money. So I think just getting rid of that. You can Google search like spam words. So don't use those. No. But like no risk and all that kind of stuff. Just steer clear of that.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys want to Google that, like just spam words, I think there's a list of like 750, but exactly like you said, like the obvious ones, like guaranteed or free or sales or, all that stuff. Try to stay away from it. And okay, another question. Are case studies a must-have in the first email, or is it working without it? Yeah. I'm not sure what the question is here, but I'm assuming his question is if case studies are an absolute must, or can you get away without it?
Well, I don't think they're a must for the first email, right? Sometimes you can even do just a one-sentence email, and say, are you doing this? Do you have this problem? You could do that. But at a certain point, case studies are going to be important. You'll have to convey to somebody, the prospect, that you can fulfill and back up your offer. And particularly if you have case studies where you've been able to win here and there, then you get inbound, and then the game gets a whole lot easier with those case studies. But I don't think it's essential, but it definitely it makes the degree of difficulty a little more for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. And next question would be, if I forward all my domains to the main domain and someone asks me to provide my website address, which address do I provide? My main website link or the domain linked with email I am replying?
Yeah, so if I think I understand the question right, we'd want to just use the like the client's domain them themselves, right?
Yeah, I think he's asking for his own offer, but yeah, if he's redirecting his sending domains to the main domain, then that's fine. They'll just type it in and he just provides his main website. But yeah, Imran, if you can rephrase that question maybe to make it a little bit clearer, let us know. Sorry, I teed up a question here that wasn't entirely clear, but we'll move on to the next one.
We'll get it.
Okay, great. Let's see what else is here. What would you say, like how important is online presence for cold email, website, LinkedIn, etc.?
I think it's all important. Yeah, I think it's all important. And then you can add like VSL to the list, which is something that, for example, like we don't have. You know, I'd like to have one, I guess, but um, doing great without it. We don't have a ton of, you know, it's maybe 1,600 Twitter followers. It's not a huge amount, but doing okay without. I think a website that looks credible. I think that's important. Anything that can point to the fact that you can do the job you're saying you're going to do, right? No matter how you get there, right? It can have a bunch of LinkedIn recommendations. It can be, you know, a sharp looking website or any combination of that. As long as you have something somewhere, and really the more the better, obviously. But yeah, and you have guys that will tell you you don't need any of that. Just start, and that's true. You don't need it. Man, it sure makes it easier if you've got it. We've had some pretty big companies, one Fortune 500 that we're talking to right now, that actually called out and said, "We're talking to you because you have a real website. You're a real company. You're not some 18-year-old kid who's, you know, living in his mom and dad's basement." So like, you know, just for to be blunt about it, but yeah, so
Yeah.
it matters. My LinkedIn profile is very scarce. I don't have a whole lot there. Um, I don't know. I think it's okay, but something, you know, you want social proof. You want to inspire confidence that you can deliver.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right, so going back to that second thing you told me in the Twitter DMs, you stumbled upon a new innovation, a new invention on with something about scraping job listings. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and actually, can I share my screen to show? Is that
Yeah,
doable
of
through this
course. Yeah, you
interface?
can just go
Okay,
ahead
cool.
and click share there. Yeah.
All right, give me 1 second here. Share my screen. Share my whole screen. See what happens here. Hopefully, nothing too wild pops up while we do this. But okay, can you see my screen? Okay.
Now it's loading. One sec. Oh, now it's good. Yeah, it's there.
Now we're good? Oh, shoot. Okay,
Yeah.
1 sec. Let me get
So you
back to where I
back
needed
into
to
your
be.
screen. Yeah.
Okay. Do you see Apify?
Exactly.
Okay,
LinkedIn
perfect.
Job Scraper.
Yeah, so this is fantastic. So we can run a scrape on Apify. Apify is fantastic, by the way, but just for our own internal purposes, we might want to scrape people who do top of funnel jobs. So SDR, obviously, and not manager. We want them in the US typically, but we'll have it set to where this can run just for the past 24 hours, and we've got it scheduled to where it's going to run every single day. And so what happens from there is we've got an Airtable board up, and those results are going to get populated here in Airtable, right? And so from there, we have the company name, the job title, when it was published, the job URL, you know, and so forth. Company LinkedIn, you guys can see all this. And then from there, we'll let Airtable talk to Clay. And so it will push in all these information, all these fields. So, okay, we don't have, for example, the domain, right? But Clay takes care of that for us, which is huge because then from there, we can find and enrich the person. And so that's going to run an API call through Google where we're going to find the right sort of, you know, the center of the bullseye for us, which is, you know, sales leaders, or it can default to a CEO and kind of that sort of contact at the end. But ultimately, yeah, we get that information, we find the work email, we can add that all to a Google Sheet, and it's crazy. And then the Google Sheet ultimately is the last step. We'll then have a human like look at this, and then clean it up a little bit because there's some cleanup that will need to get done, and then we send it to instantly, and then we just ship it. And it's very cool. And so being able to do that and have these APIs run every day in the background has been just very, very neat to have. It's also been kind of a pain to set up. Kind of made my eyes bleed at various points. So that's one thing that people can do. And if you don't want to set it up yourself and you know, play with all these APIs, I've mentioned this guy before, but his name is Cass Von Ort. He's a good guy. Jobleads.io, and he can like do that for you as a service, inexpensively. It's very cool. Like whatever your flavor is, he'll just spin it up. Here's your board, tie it to instantly, and get sending. But that's a great way, right, to have actual intent data. I know Zoom Info and Bombero, they'll charge you 15, 20K, 45 a year for intent data that I think suspect. When people are hiring for certain positions, they're telling you they intentionally want whatever those positions can fulfill, and they have the budget for it. So being able to call that out and have a really good offer, of course, you still have to always have that. But it's just been a fantastic way for us to acquire clients, for some of our clients to win clients, And I just love it. And I think we're always going to be innovating around like how can we leverage these data points and get to these decision makers quickly.
Okay, great. Yeah, one question I would have for you is like, I know you booked some meetings with multi-billion dollar brands, multi-billion dollar companies, and these are usually difficult to get a meeting with. Like, how did you pull that off? How did you go about that?
Yeah, I think just really sticking to fundamentals across the board, like very short subject line, like shorter subject lines usually win. Subject lines that have the person's first name are great. So again, I love first name thoughts. Keeping the send
Mm.
volume really low too across all of our sending domains and across all of our client domains. Because I think the one thing that can get people in trouble, and I get the tendency, is just to ram volume. Like if you keep that send light, um, and here's the example. I think last time I was on a webinar where we didn't have this nice interface, I was just saying if there's one thing I could guess and point to, and it's definitely a guess because Google and Microsoft, they're not going to tell us, right? We're all guessing here at the end of the day. But if there's one thing that can help deliverability, it's just keeping your sending volume light. Like if you have a guy, my uncle wants to go get an email address and he sends 5 to 10 a day. You think he's sweating deliverability? I don't think so, right? So he's just going to send what he's going to send and he'll probably be fine. And so if we keep the volume light, you send some personalization, but most importantly, you lead with value. You're gonna get these guys interested. They have pain just like anyone else does. And then the other thing from like our side is we have enough clients now that do enough stuff that like, just for example, like we booked calls with HP, Harvard, and Samsung. That was just in the past week and a half. But we have enough clients, and the clients have cool offers that it's like, okay, cool. This is like almost normal now. But so I don't know. But we're very grateful too to work with like awesome clients that have just very cool offers. So it will always come down to value. You can try to reverse engineer or outthink anything, but great offer is always going to play.
Yeah. So with these huge companies, how do you, who's the decision maker then, or who's the title that you go after? I'm assuming you're not going after the CEO and founder, right? You have to put a little bit more thought into that. Like, okay, who you gonna get the meeting with? If other people will like want to pull off the same of getting meetings with billion-dollar companies.
Yeah, it's a good call out. So it's often like going to like an Apollo is a good way to do it, and you can do this through LinkedIn Sales Nav too. But I think just finding people at the manager or director level, like trying to find someone who can internally champion whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah, they're going to have to like upsell, cross sell, and bring in other stakeholders, and we're pretty used to that. Where we're tending to sell to larger orgs now, where it's like okay, we talk to say a director of business development. That's a great title for us. They love it. They want to hear more. Okay, well, he's got to bring in a VP of sales or whatever, and then other departments have to ultimately kind of have to buy in. But if you can find managers and directors that are central to what your offer is, that's a good way to do it. And the nice thing too is bigger companies are going to have a ton of managers and directors. So you're going to get a lot of shots at it, not just one person. Like where it's one startup, like a startup might have one CEO or CEO, and then you're done, right? So it's not the end of the world by any means. Just cast a wide net though, for sure.
Okay, great. Um, got a couple more questions here. Um, Josh Whitfield is asking, do you have a video or Word doc on the process for leads you showed with the APIs or the Appify stuff?
I don't have anything yet. It's on the roadmap to probably do that. It could be a great Twitter giveaway, but I don't know. That
Mhm.
one's also pretty valuable too, so I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
no,
maybe you
sorry, I
should
don't.
sell that. It's too valuable to give away for free.
I know, right? I think people would do it, and we've had just showing like clients and possible clients like, "Hey, we could do this for you." They're like, "Oh, I have to have that." Okay, cool. Well, it's going to cost you a lot more. So, but yeah, I don't have one yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. And the person that did this for you was like jobleads.io, or what was the name?
Yeah, Cass Von Ort. Here, I'm going to type it into here. Into Riverside. I typed, believe I spelled his name.
No.
He's a Dutch guy. Good guy though.
Okay. Okay, cool. Josh, I'm not sure if you heard that. I'm gonna reply to your comment later with the name, and maybe that person can help you out, Josh, with getting that set up. Um, okay, another question by Ellie. Does having the same brand name in the sending domain affect deliverability? For example, try instantly.com and join instantly.com. Instantly.com. Can they get cross-flagged because the word instantly occurs in both in the domain and in the message? If yes, then I would imagine there would be value in operating multiple DBAs to market from. What do you think about that, Ken?
I think it's a good question, and I haven't seen it personally, but if I am trying to anticipate really negative, scary things happening, I would be maybe a little worried about that, right? As we look at how big tech, because they don't want what we do here to happen, of course. If I were them, I'd be a good way to sort of put the screws on and look at like these typical conventions, like try instantly, get instantly, instantly HQ, and so forth. And so finding things that are just totally different, but still mean the same idea. I think that makes a ton of sense because at the end of the day, what I can say, nobody seems to care where the domain comes from, right? If they can see ultimately who you are and your offer's good, they're going to chat. So yeah, I think that's something we've been talking about internally is trying to move away from some of those, just to have more separation from like our main accounts, like we've got a Google Domains account. That's pretty valuable. We want to keep it in good standing. Same GoDaddy, you name it. And so I think creating a bunch of these and being smart about how you do that, that's kind of the future of it, in my view, is just risk mitigation across the board.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, right, so far I haven't really seen any issues with, like, we have a ton of like instantly sending accounts with variations and stuff, but yeah, maybe in the future that will come up more. Also, like, make sure your campaigns are good, right? If you're just blasting out an offer with a bad campaign and you're never getting replies, then you're going to burn all your domains anyway. Like, be smart about like what type of offers you launch, how you worded the copy and all that. Then you'll also have more longevity with your domains.
Yeah, exactly. And this is funny, and this is like so timely because just this morning in Sean Longden's closing clients group, somebody actually said they got a notification. They shared a screenshot from Google, like alleged registrar abuse, saying that they were doing some phishing scheme, and now his like Google Domains account is at risk. So it speaks exactly to this question, and it's like, whoa, I don't know how. I think it's still like pending the resolution, but like, scary. And so, yeah, I think but I think to your point too, Nils, it's smart. Like, follow the best practices. Don't be spamming. Don't be insane. Like, just keep your offer,
Exactly. Don't be
keep it
insane.
tight.
Like, keep it with common sense. Yeah, keep it like stay with the common sense. Don't blast 500 shitty emails out from one account and stuff like that, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
you're asking for it otherwise, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Um, okay, great. I have another question here. With your business, are you trying to master one niche or are you spread out across multiple niches?
Yeah, we hit them all. There's value in certain cases, I suppose, of niching down. But yeah, we like to, we've worked across the board, like prop tech, fintech, cybersecurity, big finance, healthcare, logistics. I mean, you name it. So we'll take anyone that's got a really good offer. And the other thing they have to have is, I think, a large TAM, right? If they have a sizable pool that we can spit emails at, that's important too. But yeah, we're agnostic. Otherwise, anyone happy to work with.
Okay, cool. Yeah, check it out, AutoUp.io. If you need help with your campaigns and if you have a good offer, then can jump on a call with you. Um, Another question from Felipe. So he's asking, when scaling sending volume, do you still recommend using images and links on the signature?
I found by keeping them in the signature doesn't hurt. So, yeah, I don't know because I'm also somewhat gun shy of trying to do two more and get too cute with it. But I think if you put a bunch of links, probably into just like your core body copy, I feel like that could be problematic. And again, we're all guessing here, but my experience does tell me that by keeping a couple links and even a photo of like an avatar of myself and for clients like in the signature, we've been okay. So kind of park that stuff there and but keep watching too. I think that's important. Like, and chat with your clients, and if there's drop off, I don't know that it would be that, right? If there's drop off, it's probably been hit the spam enough times. I don't know that it's the link. If you're already landing for a long time in primary inbox with this stuff. My guess is something else changed. It's probably not the an extra link or two.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have a good tutorial on your Twitter on how to create those signatures with HTML and all that to paste it in. So for people listening, people who are going to watch the recording, like check out Ken's Twitter profile as well. I think it's somewhere on there, right? You have it. You have
Yeah, it's
the
like towards the
guidelines.
bottom. Yeah, but yeah, 'cause I don't have too many
Yeah.
tweets, so not
Yeah.
too hard to find.
Maybe another question would be, what's the sweet spot employee sizes for companies to target with cold email? Like, do you target any company, like you 0 to 25 employees? You also targeting huge employee size companies as well, like you just talked about. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
I mean, 11 to 50 is nice. 50 to 200 is a good one. And I think Apollo has those dedicated fields, and Sales Navigator does as well. But I think that those smaller, SMB type of buckets, those have always served us pretty well. And they tend to be pretty receptive. And oftentimes, like, they're not so they're going to have budget too at that size, right? Because they can pay for employees. And then if you position it like, hey, we can take a salary, it won't be as much as hiring like an FTE. Hey, that's compelling stuff. Let's chat. But yeah, because at that point they don't necessarily have to have like this like processes built out, like this growth model. Where with cold email, I am always blown away by this. The amount of people, even really smart execs that have raised tens of millions, never heard of this process. Like the enterprise guys, they're using something like Outreach, or they're blasting emails through HubSpot, cold emails, and like they're having their SDRs dial for dollars. And we ran a test, it was like last year, but targeting, asking, I should say, sales directors, biz dev directors, on average, how many activities a day do your reps do? And it was like 62, 63 activities a day. Really good ones were able to do, 100 a day. That's for a good SDR, but like, it's crazy. Like they have no concept the mass volume, if they have a good offer that can exist with what we do here. And so, yeah, it's eye-opening stuff. But I think, yeah, getting back to, I guess your question, yeah, 11 to 50 is great. And then even up to 200, I think still pretty solid too.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's really interesting what you mentioned with the sales team. I also saw one of the case studies that you have where somebody said basically the campaigns that you launched, the outreach campaigns, they were able to replace or do the equivalent of the work of an entire sales team.
Yeah.
Is that what you just mentioned, or is that another story?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And there's another one. We have like a weekly check-in. I was just chatting with this guy. He's a really smart guy. His name is Rich. He's in London, ex-Google guy. I actually went out and had plenty of beers with him a few weeks ago, which was awesome. So when you can meet your clients, even better. But because he's raised some money and was going to have a sales team, but he's like, we didn't even have to. We got you guys. And it's insane. We're ripping 40, 50 ops a month. Just wild numbers. But again, like, he's got a really cool offer, right? So they do last mile delivery, e-cargo bikes. The general idea is they're faster, greener, and cheaper. Well, hello, like, who doesn't want to hear that if you're in the logistics space and you're sending out a ton of parcels? So, but yeah, that's another one where it's like, we're like the lowest paid employee in a sense, but we're also like the highest performer, and that's kind of typical. So if you get good at cold email, like that's a nice place to be able to position yourself to other companies as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like this bigger companies never heard about secondary sending domains or even like setting up DMARC or like these basic practices, right? And when you come in with that knowledge, then you can get amazing results. And obviously they need a good offer as well, but then it's pretty much easy game from there. But
Yeah.
I see another question here. How do you educate corporate clients when they want leads, but they don't want to spend time learning this stuff, or just don't trust it because of a bad past experience?
Well,
What do you think about that?
it's a good question, and it depends how we get connected. So the first thing is, if we're connected because of a cold email that we sent, it's almost like game over. It's almost like shooting fish in a barrel. It's like,
Proof is in
well,
the pudding.
right, like, why are we on this call, right? It works, and then right, and I'll show them the metrics. So we've got some really good previous campaigns. It was that thread you were mentioning from a while back where Like we did 87% open rates. We've ultimately won 6 clients targeting biz dev directors. Six, and it was like we hit 2,800. But I like to talk about that campaign where it's like, okay, these guys, that's the center of our bullseye. I walk them through. I show them the copy, and the copy's pretty good. People like that, and it's like, okay, we can do something like this for you. And then it's like, yeah, again, especially if they got hooked up to me through an email, it gets a lot easier for sure. But I think really showing them results, and then we'll go through the case studies and say, like the guy I just mentioned in London, right? This isn't on our website, but it just happened. And I did tweet about it recently, but like he won a deal. It's going to pay him 30 grand a month with a Fortune 500 company. And so we can talk to like, because like a lot of guys will say, okay, cool, reply rates, and here's your screenshot, and there's not a lot of context in that. But we've at this point got enough social proof where it's all about just points on the board, and it's revenue, and it's like closed deals, and that's the game we're playing. So it's like, if you have a good offer, we feel really good that we can get you there, right? But I do caveat everything that it's always about the offer, because I think cold email can be really harsh. It will illuminate and show if your offer's weak, right? You're going to find that out pretty quickly. It can help you find product market fit too. But it's almost fun to like subtly play it back and say, okay, how good is your product? We'll find out, because we're going to deliver it there, right? Let's do it. Let's take this for a spin. So,
yeah, that's cool what you said. Like, cold email will very quickly expose a bad offer, and very quickly also show if something is a good offer. Like it will work pretty quickly. But yeah, that's just the landscape. Let's see if there's any other questions before we wrap up. Great session, and I'm sure there's also a bunch of people that are gonna watch this recording. Let's see. No, we can really wrap it up. Great, like cold email Avengers episode here, Facebook Live. Maybe for you, Ken, if you have anything else you want to talk about or anything, you can do that.
Yeah, no. Well, as always, thanks for having me. I love chatting and just kicking it easy around with this stuff. It's always fun, but maybe it's a good time to like pour one out for Zoho, right? Because I think the getting was good with Zoho, and people have been running into problems like, and we finally did too, where they're really cracking down. It was good time to get really low cost email addresses that worked well for a long time, but I think that just underscores it, right? Like you have to just pay attention to stuff, because things change so quickly, and so now it's move on to the next. But I think that's another key to do, just to just keep succeeding, is just be on the cutting edge of stuff, because it moves fast.
Yeah, exactly. And I always recommend people to diversify their sending accounts as well if they're having troubles with Zoho right now. Not everybody is affected. We're seeing it more like for newer accounts, for like more for older accounts, for accounts that have like been sending for a couple months already. The issue is less there, and we're also working a couple fixes for that. But that being said, always good to diversify. Get Outlook sending accounts, Microsoft 365, G Suite. Those are still like super stable, and it's a little bit more expensive. But if you have a good offer and you know what you're doing with those cold email basics, it's still going to be very, very high ROI activity. But yeah,
Totally
great, awesome, man. Ken, thanks for taking the time. Was super interesting. Also for me, even though I've been like in cold email for a while. Thanks for answering all the questions from the audience. And if people want to work with Ken, if you have a good offer and good social proof as well, like go to AutoUp.io. I'll post a link as well in this post. Can chat to Ken. He's active on Twitter as well. And yeah.
cool. Yeah. No, thanks, Nils. I appreciate it. Awesome chatting as always, man.
Okay, awesome. And everybody also that was listening, watching. Thanks for being on, and talk to you soon.